The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
I speak for more than half the world's population. We are the silent majority. You've given us a seat in this hall, but our interests are not on the table. What does it take to get a stake in this game? Lobbyists, corporate influence, money? You've been negotiating all my life. In that time, you've failed to meet pledges, you've missed targets, and you've broken promises. But you've heard this all before. The International Energy Agency tells us we have 5 years until the window to avoid irreversible climate change closes. The science tells us that we have 5 years maximum. You're saying, give us 10. The most stark betrayal of your generation's responsibility to ours is that you call this ambition. Where is the courage in these rooms? Now is not the time for incremental action. In the long run, these will be seen as the defining moments of an era in which narrow self-interest prevailed over science, reason, and common compassion. There is real ambition in this room, but it's been dismissed as radical, deemed not politically possible. What's radical is to write off the fact that change is within our reach. Common but differentiated and historical responsibility are not up for debate. Respect the foundational principles of this convention. Respect the integral values of humanity. Respect the future of your descendants. So, distinguished delegates and governments around the world, governments of the developed world, deep cuts now. Get it done.
Well, what you have heard just now is a speech by a youth delegate Anjali Appadurai to protest the failure of the world leaders to agree immediately on binding emission cuts at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Durban in 2011.
The voice of sharing, Durian Heat.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
So this is Arlene.
Hi, I'm Jolene.
And of course you guys are with Durian ASEAN. So we are going to speak with Lastrina and also Mirantha on their experience, on their opinions regarding on the rise of climate movements in Southeast Asia. First of all, I want to ask, how are you guys doing?
Doing great. Yeah, we're in good health.
Regarding on climate change, since when both of you got involved in climate change activities and movements? Perhaps you can start with Lastrina.
Okay, so for me, my starting point was more on the general scope of environment, and that was in late 2010. So I was just doing general environmental issues, specifically on climate change issues. I think that started around 2012. And I was exposed to that when I was volunteering with an organization called 350 Singapore, which is the local chapter of the larger global movement called 350.org, where the focus is on building up a grassroots movement to tackle climate change. So that was how I got started with climate change and climate action activities.
I see, that's quite a long time ago, like 5 to 6 years ago. And with Mirantha?
Yeah, I actually started back when I was in high school. So I joined this event called Gadis Year-End Party, and they have a competition about to create a booth there. Me and my colleague decided to raise the awareness issue about forestry back then, and we came one of 5 finalists. Yeah, that's basically where I started. But when I became more involved is back also into 2010, because I was selected as a delegate for UNFCCC from Indonesia to represent Central Kalimantan, so as the official youth delegates of Indonesia. So basically that's where I got really involved back then.
And our host as well, Jolene, you have been participating in a lot of climate activities. Perhaps you can also share your experience.
Okay. So previously I was involved in Malaysian Youth Delegation and Power Shift Malaysia. So Power Shift Malaysia is a climate movement initiated by youth with an aim to divest fossil fuels and to promote renewable energy sources, which is much more a viable solution to address climate change. And last year, I was given the opportunity to be the mentors of Power Shift Malaysia, which is very great because I'm able to utilize the skills that I've learned in my university years to educate the people on Climate 101. And in regards to Malaysian youth delegation, it is much more different from Power Shift Malaysia because we have a group of 6 of us where we have to go through a series of trainings to attend this international conference on climate change, which was organized by UNFCCC. And last year was known as Paris COP21, which is the largest climate change conference that was ever organized in the world. And 196 countries that come together for once to address climate change.
Very interesting. All of you guys have been starting your participation in climate activities for quite a while. How do you guys see in terms of the evolvement of the organization and the movement among the younger generation on climate change? Lastrina?
I think in Singapore's context, in terms of involvement of the young people on climate change issues, previously, if people were to search for a climate change organization in Singapore, they would go to just one organization or 2 organizations focusing on this issue. I think right now, especially the last few months, with the formation of another group that I'm part of called Singapore Youth for Climate Action, there's more interest from the young people ourselves to start our own groups and start our own movement talking about these issues. We want to take ownership of this topic and we want to take ownership of the things that we can do around this issue. So in terms of involvement of young people, there are more people who are starting groups talking about this, and there are more people participating in the events organized by the various groups. And I think in Singapore's context, especially this year, it has been quite happening. There's a number of fellowship programs, leadership programs. There's a debate going on tonight talking about environment and economic progress. So I think there's momentum is building up in Singapore, and there's lots of interest in this from the young people.
Mm-hmm. And in Indonesia, how it is like?
For Indonesia, the people who came from the bigger city is much more aware about climate change. But for the people that was in much more remote island, those kind of knowledge is still, I'm not going to say that they didn't know, but maybe they were not fully know the depth of the causes of climate change and also the impact, while they were the one who will be affected the most. For the movement in Indonesia, I think one of the country with the most NGOs in Southeast Asia.
Not
I
surprised.
Don't know no surprise because we have more than 300 million people here. And the movement right now has become more massive, and a lot of people are much more aware right now about climate change issues and what is happening right now. But sometimes the problem is the issue was only raised when something is happening. So when it's gone, suddenly they were not aware anymore. Yeah, but now the issue is much more raised. A lot of people much more aware and involved.
The awareness is increasing. Similar experience in Malaysia as well, right?
Well, there is an increase of environmental and climate awareness among the people in Malaysia. This I have to agree on because I have conducted a survey on climate change last year. They know what is climate change. They know that the earth is getting warmer because of carbon dioxide. But they do not know the in-depth knowledge of what are the other gases that are causing global warming. And most of the time, they think the impacts of climate change is basically the end of the world. It's like the film that we have watched before, known as The Day After Tomorrow. So that's the perception they have on climate change. So there is still a gap that we need to fill in, and there are at least 24 environmental NGOs in Malaysia has been working on raising awareness and delivering environmental and climate educations to the people.
So there's a lot of initiatives out there in Southeast Asia
Yeah.
to refocus societal perception on climate change and change their mindset to create more awareness on the environment and on sustainability. This is the end of the first segment. We will continue to the second segment to discuss on community awareness on sustainability and climate change in Southeast Asia.